All right, I'm joined by Randy Seaver. Randy has a big online presence with the Biddeford Gazette. We have a big election coming up next week. There's so many things to discuss. Thanks for taking time to talk to me.
It's a pleasure to be here, Randy.
So you getting any sleep nowadays, or what's going on?
Well, I've got a countdown clock that I put on my site.
I saw that.
We're a little bit more than 172 hours from when the polls close. My big concern is that I view election day like as Christmas for most people. You know, when you're a little kid and you can't wait, and you count down the time, and then you run down that morning and you tear into your presents, and all the family comes over and you have a big meal, and then it's December 26th. And it's just cold and dark outside.
I don't know what you're going to do after.
Yeah, right. I don't have a plan. I predict there'll still be plenty of news to cover after the election. So,
Well, there's a whole bunch of things to discuss with you. I mean, you've been doing a great job at the Biddeford Gazette. I love following. There's a bunch of stories that you've been sharing them over the past few weeks and months, and I'll get to all that stuff. But I do want to focus on that election because a lot of your coverage has been focused on that. Seems like on a daily basis. You're doing a great job with candidate profiles across all the different seats that are up for election today. But the big one in Biddeford, at least, is the mayor race, a three-way race. What are your thoughts on the race so far?
well, it's been really interesting. You know, when you're the incumbent like Marty is, that's always an advantage in terms of name recognition and other things. It's called the power of the incumbency. The problem, however, is that if you're the incumbent, you kind of have to own everything that's gone bad in the last 2 years. And I get the sense that Marty is getting increasingly, for lack of a better word, desperate. And I've been a political junkie and been watching elections since I was 10 years old. I have never, ever seen candidates reject the endorsement of the mayor, meaning that, they went, Dylan Dowdy, Brad Cody, and somebody else went online immediately after Marty said he was endorsing them and saying, thank you, but no thank you.
Really?
That's really very telling. With all due respect to the mayor, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah.
And and if you think about it, Randy, in this particular race, the two people running against Marty are two of the people who know him best. They have been working with him on the council dais for the past 2 years. They've been attending every executive session meeting behind closed doors with him. And they both have one common theme. The city needs strong leadership. So Marty, and then if you look at the endorsements for Liam Lafont that came out last week, Liam pretty much has got Mark Lassard, Roger Beaupre, and Scott Whiting all endorsing him. So Marty, it's just strange to see so little support from the established candidates for his mayoral race. But it's a three-way race, so anything can happen.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like three strong candidates or people, like you said, two city councilors and a mayor running again. When's the last time there's been a race quite like that?
Well, I don't know. There's been a couple three-way races. The most significant three-way race where I was surprised with the turnout, you have to go back to 2000. I believe it was 2003, I believe. I should have prepared notes. But it was when Wallace Nutting took on John McCurry. I mean, not John McCurry. Let me slow down. Wallace Nutting jumped into the race late in a race that was between Dan Boucher and Mark Lassard. And a lot of people said, oh, Nutting, he's a Republican. He's originally from Saco. He blew the race away. In this race, a lot of people are not happy with the current mayor, but you have to wonder where are those people going to go? Are they going to go to Belanger or are they going to go to Liam? And that's the big question. Liam has shown that he can bridge, a pretty wide array of support, but Norm has, he has that kind of local boy made good. He's got the Franco name, and I think older voters may tend to float a little bit more to him. And it's older voters, Randy. It's the older voters that turn out in these off-year elections. So they could very well swing this thing for Norm. Liam could come up. He's right now on my little amateur poll. He's at 57%.
I saw that. What was it, a couple hundred votes so far?
Yeah, 228 or so, 228. And I'm gonna push it out again just to see, But again, anything could happen. Really could. And Marty could win this election, depending on how the turnout goes, even though he doesn't get most of the votes. Most votes could go to Belanger and LaFountain combined. So Marty could walk away with 38% of the vote.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what can happen in a three-way race, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to talk about the debate you did. So you put together a debate, been a couple weeks now, right? 2-3 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you think everything went?
I think it was great. I was a little disappointed about 5 minutes before we started. I was informed that the video was not working. So that was a little disappointment. I think it was a really good debate. It was really kind of very telling. And I think the audience enjoyed the debate. And I got a lot of positive feedback afterwards. But all the analysis that I've heard back from, people who were there is that Liam really did a really good job. And Marty just seemed all over the place,
Really?
kind of frustrated and kind of detached. Norm made some jokes that kind of fell flat a little bit, but his answers were very, you could tell he practiced. It just seemed that Marty wasn't prepared for the debate, and he knew about it for weeks in advance.
How does that work? Do they get the general topics? It's not like they get specific questions, or do they get any?
No, we gave them this year. I did it old school. They had to walk onto that stage. They had no idea what was going to come at them. They all had equal time. We rotated between them, but I didn't want them to have the questions in advance. And I thought one of the best questions, because we solicited questions from the audience in advance, and we opened with the best question I thought was from Councilor Mark Lassard, who said, "If you could not vote for yourself, which of the other two candidates would you vote for?" Yeah, and that made them very uncomfortable, which is right where we wanted them to be at the beginning.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
So they all had to answer. So did they all have to answer every question? Because I read your write up afterwards. I did not listen to audio. I probably would have watched the video. I was bummed for you that the video didn't work out, but I don't know that I necessarily saw the notes on that part. But everyone had to answer the question. It was like the same question 3 times, not a different question for each candidate.
Right. Yeah, it was the same question. So we rotated around. So when we asked the question, the person we asked it to had 90 seconds, and then the other two had 60 seconds each to respond or rebut. And then we just kind of rotated around. We played it in order.
So having gone through the debate and all the coverage that you've done over the past weeks and months, what do you think are like the 3 biggest issues that Biddeford people have right now that they're going to use to make a decision on who they vote for mayor?
I think, people have been in the last couple of weeks opening their property tax bills. They're seeing a big jump. Honestly, that's not so much from the city as it is from problems on the school side. Lack of state funding, as you know, you're a member of the school committee. That's a big. So the school committee had its back against the wall, and I don't think there was any fluff or extras on the budget request from the schools. But taxpayer voters tend to not parse out. All they know is they're getting a much bigger property tax bill.
Yeah, and that gets assigned to the mayor, right? Like the way to fight back against that tax bill is who they vote for when it comes to that position.
Yeah, so they're not going to be happy about that. There have been some questionable, things that have happened in terms of development and certain projects through the city, and there's been a real lack of transparency and accountability. I mean, most of the council, when the Pepperell Mill owners decided to convert to condos, the council didn't find out about it until the general public found out about it at a city council meeting.
When was that?
And that was, that was last year. It was before Bennett left, because Jim and Marty had been trying to kind of keep it quiet and make the deal happen. And
what did that get us? What did that deal get? Or what was the purpose of that?
That deal didn't really get us anything but possible future investment by that company. But look at the deal. Look at the recent deal with the Westbrook Development Corporation down on Lincoln Street. Actually, it's Pearl Street, where Murphy used to sit. In 2012, was announced first term, the city paid $6.1 million for that property, which is likely probably, not some environmental questions about it. But today, 13 years later, Randy, that property is across the street from the luxurious Lincoln Hotel. It's riverfront property. Everybody wants to be in that area. Yet the city sold it to the developer for less than $600,000. How does that, why do we, Biddeford is not in the position any longer where we need to give away the farm in order to get a cow. It just seems like, and people are starting to question some of these development projects. And then there's the whole UNE thing.
Mhm.
And so it just seems like Marty is uncomfortable talking about challenging subjects. We had a scathing audit report. Again, not Marty's fault, but this was Bennett. But the council, it puzzles me. That was a year ago. And why did the council let Bennett stay so long when we had so many red flags?
Yeah.
So there's that too. I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
No, those are all good things. All things that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
So the transparency piece, it sounds like one of the things I want to ask was like, is that founded or unfounded as a concern? Because I see a lot of people on the comments of your Facebook post talking about like transparency, and it's like, is that a real thing, or is that just like what people think, even though they don't fully understand what's going on with these deals? Like, is there really a lack of transparency?
I guess I'll answer this question like it's like any other question. There's a little bit of truth to that lack of transparency, and there's a little bit of falsehood. I mean, sometimes, honestly, and when you're working on a major, a multi-million deal with a developer, trying to entice them to come to town for various reasons, you can't put everything out on the public record. Okay, you gotta be. The city has to be able to negotiate if they're gonna try to compete against the town of Cumberland that just, a housing project we got that Cumberland didn't get. So, but there is some truth to it. And again, the Pepperell Mill conversion, that was a big one. The whole UNE process, people are just like, so many people saying that just doesn't make sense. Why did this happen? How did we get here?
Can you give me like a bridge version of that? Because I don't think I hear there's a lot of controversy about the UNE Pier situation and the deals that were made, but I almost wonder, like, as someone that follows stuff online fairly closely, I still can't even, if someone was like, tell me what happened, I don't know that I could explain it personally.
Yeah. Well, this issue has been going on. The university has been planning this pier for a long time. It goes back to 2015. It just started becoming kind of controversial a year and a half ago when the press, me, and then, then others, Channel 6 to Point Herald, when we started kind of digging into it. When you don't spend a lot of time on the river or what have you, when you say UNE wants a pier, most people think, oh, it's like a dock, like at Uncle Henry's camp, just a dock where you tie up your boat. It's not. It is not. It is a major piece of infrastructure built, solid concrete, I-beam, steel constructions going out about 2/3 of a football field into the rivers. Years ago, when UNE first started discussing this idea, our harbor master, who's now deceased, told him that was not a good location because it would interfere with navigation, with people who have existing moorings. He found a site closer to land that would run parallel that he said would be a much better solution for them, giving them all the berthing space they want and not interfere. They refused. And it's been kind of a battle back and forth. But UNE, I think it's very important to note, their process seems to have been really expedited, especially at the Saco River Corridor Commission level.
Yeah.
But in defense of UNE, they have done everything correctly. They have gone to all the various agencies, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Maine Department of Environmental Protection, the Saco River Corridor Commission, and even the Planning Board. They got all their approvals. What you're seeing now is people want to kind of retroact those approvals because they're saying the public was rolled over. They're not happy. The people who are angry about this, most angry, are not angry at UNE. They're angry about a process that just, for instance, the mooring owners, talk to those guys. nobody has still talked to them or reached out to them. They haven't heard from the mayor. They haven't heard from the city manager. They haven't heard from UNE. These guys are, they make their living out on the ocean, commercial fishermen, and nobody's even talking to them. So I think that's what's driving the anger. Most people I know want UNE to have. It would be great if they get a pier like the one they want, just in a different location, because it'll open up a world of opportunities for them, and that's going to be ultimately good for Biddeford. So it's just I don't understand UNE's stubborn insistence on the one location that would have the biggest impact on public access.
Yeah. I know you mentioned that some people, it's not people that are specifically mad at UNE, but I don't feel like there's a lot of love for UNE too. I do see a lot of comments about just like, I don't even know how it works, but UNE doesn't pay property taxes, I guess.
Right? They don't.
Right?
They
Like,
don't.
and
Yeah.
that's a
UNE
thing for
is
people. So it's like we have this huge entity that it feels like all us taxpayers are bending over backwards to make it work to have them, So I'm sure that doesn't make things easy.
Yeah, because I'm going to use a couple other examples, but UNE has that beautiful riverfront property, and if they were a taxpayer, they would be paying millions in taxes. But there's always resentment, Randy. If you go up to Waterville, where Colby College is, people are not happy. There's a town versus gown thing. In Lewiston, it's Bates College and the city. In Brunswick, the town of
So
Brunswick.
this arrangement isn't new.
Yeah, it's not.
Towns, yeah.
It's not. Yeah,
It's not like
unique.
UNE's a unicorn in the whole thing. It's just like this is standard,
Yeah,
the way it works.
and I think your listeners should know that UNE does and has historically done is pays what's called a pilot to the city. That stands as an acronym for payment in lieu of taxes. It's about $50,000 a year. That they don't have to do that. There's nothing requiring them to do that. They just do it to try to offset cost. A lot of people say that's just a drop in the bucket. Even every time a kid burns a bag of popcorn in a microwave, we send out a ladder truck and a rescue vehicle because the smoke alarms went off. So that 50,000 doesn't go far.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. On the lack of transparency front, because it brought us to a whole bunch of different topics. One of them is Jim Bennett, and that seems to be a situation that was very close to your heart. Do you think your coverage of him kind of led to the way things
Oh,
and ultimately turned out?
yeah, this is where I go. This is where I'm going to just unabashedly pat myself on the back, because I had a conversation with Liz, who's the publisher of Saco Bay News, telling her I just can't stand by anymore and watch this guy. So I kind of had to pull back from being a reporter covering Biddeford, and I went after him full scale. And it took us about 90 days of hammering away, and we built a case. I say we because a lot of people helped me. We built a solid case that the council could no longer ignore, the public could no longer ignore. Bennett had his back against the wall. He didn't have anybody else to blame. He'd gone through his whole litany of excuses. And then it was interesting. He says, well, I'm making a phased retirement. Phased retirement, my butt. He left $15,000 on the table as a retention bonus he would have gotten. He retired in the middle of his contract. No, he was resigning because he knew the jig was up. And then the city was going to let him stay in office until April. And then finally some stuff came to light, and they showed him the door. That's a polite way of saying, in February. They asked me to change my language because Jim was upset that I said he was fired. So he was placed on paid administrative leave. That's just a nice way to say he was fired. And I'll say it here. He was fired. They fired him.
How do you feel about the resolution how it all came to a head, a couple weeks ago?
Yeah.
Was that always the end of how it was going to end?
I think the city just needs to close that chapter, just try to move on. Honestly, when I first, when I was talking to people and I was putting that story together, it felt like I threw up in my mouth a little bit and then swallowed it. Just thinking that he's going to get $90,000, but it's chump change compared to what it would have been had we continued to fight in court with lawyers and everything. So it's for the best. I don't blame the city for settling. I just hope that I never have to write another story about Jim Bennett.
That would be nice. I'm sure.
That
Yeah.
would be very nice.
But anyone that's listening should know that that money isn't money from taxpayers, though, right? That is
No,
insurance money.
yeah, the city has insurance policy, and so that our insurance paid out. Now, as a result, will we see our premiums for that
Yeah.
policy go
That's
up?
always the risk of filing a claim, right?
Yeah, yeah. So maybe a little bit, but I don't think it'll get close to $90,000. So the city didn't have much of a choice from just a strategic or economic point of view. It was best just to settle it, close the door on this, and move forward. And we got super lucky, Randy. We got an awesome city manager now.
Yeah, she seems great.
Yeah, she's 180 degrees the opposite of Bennett. And she's just such a breath of fresh air. She really listens. She's accountable. She returns her emails quickly. All the staff I've talked to are really encouraged. So I'm trying to focus on the good news and not just Bennett is gone.
Yeah. No, it does seem like it's good news, just for all the reasons that you said. And now we're heading into an election, and then now hopefully we can fully turn the page on all that stuff and just kind of move forward. But it's been great, the coverage you have done of that city manager. What's her name again?
Her name is Truck Deaver. Dever. Yeah, you see, if she ever married me, she would be Truck Deaver Seaver.
It's easy for you to remember that one.
Yeah.
But she's been great, and that coverage has been awesome. I don't know where other people would get that information from if it wasn't for someone like you profiling her. And I think the citizens need to hear that stuff, given what all the stuff that's happened with Bennett over the past few years. So.
Well, it was one of our contributing writers. It was right after I'd broken my arm, and it was one of our contributing writers, Jim Krause, who did that interview with her, and he was so excited about doing the interview that he was trying to do all this research about her ahead of time, and he found out that on social media somewhere she is a semi-champion at the game Connect 4. So he went to the store and he bought a Connect 4 game, and he brought it into the interview so they could play Connect 4 while he was interviewing her. And I thought, what a great strategy, and she loved it, and I thought he did a great job with that story.
That's awesome. I'm glad you mentioned the contributing writer, because I just attribute everything to you, and I'm sure a lot of people do when it's under the Biddeford Gazette headline or on the website or on the Facebook post that you have. But you're right, it was him, and you have had some op-eds and other people writing for the site, so it's a good reminder to hear that stuff.
Yeah, we as we go forward, I'm hoping we get if you click on the Our Team section on our site, we'll see several people. We also got a great advisory board. Again, all volunteers. We got some awesome people there. So I just see the
board,
Bonnie Coffee,
old and young and new and from Biddeford, from away. It's just a good mix of people.
That was our intention, when we put that together. And so I'm feeling really positive. I don't know, exactly where the Biddeford Gazette's going, but I do know it's growing, and it's growing in a good way.
All right, I want to hold that thought because I want to get back to that. We were getting to the things that were about the election for mayor that were really pain points for people. First is their property taxes. Then the last few things that we've been talking about were lack of transparency, which that opens up a whole can of worms for all the things that we just talked about. But is there anything else that comes to mind for people that's really important to them when it comes to making that decision?
Well, they're just, they have a lot of people tell me they haven't seen their sewer bills yet. There's the feeling that City Hall is still, there's a lot of people that feel that the city is kind of floundering, and it's getting better. It's getting better. Our new finance director, Jerry Mathern, has jumped right in. She's getting stuff done, but it's hard to explain how much damage Jim Bennett really did. And so people are angry about that. And I think that's, and when I've heard a lot of complaints that people can't get through when they try to call City Hall, or they have to wait in line a long time. They complain the City Hall is closed on Fridays. So it's a lot of little things like that. And then, of course, the proverbial, there's a, pothole in my street, those kinds of things. They come up every election. So it's all just...
Do you think someone would base a vote on that sort of thing? I mean, but I guess people do. I'm sure there's...
Yeah, they do. Oh yeah, they do. And this whole sewer project that we've been going through, that Scott Tebow from the Heart of Biddeford coined it as the Nightmare on Elm Street.
That was brutal, man. That was a great. I remember when he did that, and he was on the podcast not that long ago, and we talked about it. But that was a brutal run this summer.
Yeah,
and it still is in certain ways. I mean, it's not.
try getting past the corner of Main Street and Elm Street like
Yeah,
today.
do it multiple times a day. It's
Yeah.
weird. It doesn't even make sense in certain ways. But I look at that stuff though. It's almost unfair to Marty, but it does get assigned to him for whatever reason. Like he has any impact on when this stuff was scheduled, why it was scheduled, why it's taking as long as it is. That must be a challenging thing for him. But I definitely know that it weighs on voters.
Oh yeah, it is for Marty, and to his credit, he tried to jump up early, and he held meetings, roundtable discussions in his office at City Hall, and he tried, walking up and down the streets, talking to merchants. So I mean, it's you can't blame Marty for an infrastructure project that's been put off and put off and put off, kicked down the road for years. They just finally got to a place where they couldn't kick it down the road anymore, and Marty happened to be mayor. But look at what they did to Bonnie Belanger, now Bonnie Pontier, when she was mayor. She had to institute sewer user fees to help, because we have again the infrastructure, the repairs and upgrades and state and federal laws were all just kind of pushed aside. And she got brutally beaten. She lost her seat because of that. People said, I got to pay a sewer fee now. And they thought that by electing somebody else, they would get rid of sewer fees. And it's not the way it works. Oh, and the other issue that Marty doesn't own really is the parking garage. And
Garage, okay.
yeah, people still,
Why is that a Marty thing?
it's not a Marty thing.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
almost feel like it's a whoever is currently the mayor thing. People are going to be pissed about the parking garage at that mayor.
Yeah, Marty said 2 years ago when I interviewed him that was going to be one of his top priorities, getting the owners of the garage to come before the council and make changes. He's made a few changes, but there's not a whole lot that he can change with the parking garage. But again, he's the incumbent. So if you have a negative experience at the parking garage, or if you're still just really, really upset about the parking garage, and there are a lot of people who are,
I see it all the time.
they're not going to vote for you.
Yeah.
They're gonna, yeah.
It just makes me wonder, like, what could Norm or Liam do any different when it comes to the parking garage to the point that there would be people stop complaining online? And I honestly don't even know if it's a vocal minority of people or if it really is like this groundswell of people that really have issue with the parking garage.
Well, a lot of the people who talk about issues in Biddeford, they're the ones who vote. A lot of people don't talk about issues or pay attention. They don't even know who's running for mayor or who is mayor, and they're not going to vote. So it's going to be weird to see how that breaks down. I will say, over a year ago, Norm Belanger proposed an idea to get us more revenue coming in the parking garage. They kind of took a red Sharpie and they circled around the parking garage, and everybody inside of that red circle would have to pay a special assessment tax. And that way, you and me, we wouldn't have to be on the hook for that, just the downtown businesses that have the benefit of the garage.
Yeah.
But
okay.
It went nowhere.
We'll see where that goes. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll see where the parking garage in general goes. And it's a thing that it's not going anywhere, but I'm just fascinated to see what city leadership can do at this point to make lemonade out of lemons, because it just obviously tough situation. There's plenty of people that will point out that it was voted against or however it all went down. But at this point, like, all we can really do is move forward. So I look forward to seeing how leadership can actually move forward and make it viable or make it something that's not a huge issue for the citizens.
Well, that was another big reason for supporting that development at the former Merck site, because one part of the development is going to be on the back side of the garage, on the back side of the garage, and the other development is going to be on the front side of the garage. And both of those developments are going to use parking in the garage.
Yeah. So is that the reason for a potential sweetheart deal for them?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that went through, Marty broke the tie on that vote, and I think that was part of the rationale. George Gervais said, look, if you want more people using the garage and, to lower the city's financial contribution, then, you're going to have development. And when that development happens, they're going to be using the garage more. And so eventually the city will be off the hook for its stabilization payments.
Homelessness, was that an issue that came up?
Yeah, I think Marty has been I give him a B plus on that issue. Again, the mayor can't do much about homelessness. It's just not illegal to be homeless. It's not illegal to sit on a park bench all day long and smoke cigarettes or whatever. I mean, it's so, but it is such a complex problem. I think Marty has done a good job of trying to bring together some stakeholders. He did take leadership and stood behind cleaning out that encampment that was behind Mechanics Park down there on Water Street. That was the last time I saw Marty really stand up and take leadership. A lot of people were not happy with him for clearing out that encampment, but he has since worked. He's trying to work, I think, on a weekly basis in these huddle meetings. And he will tell you that he has so far, just the last year, found 70 people who were homeless and have gotten them into safe and consistent housing. So
That's pretty positive.
yeah, that's a good.
Really
I mean, I think that's a good move for him, and it's one of his highlights as mayor for sure.
Did the other candidates mention any plans for? To me, it's one of those things that just seems like it really is unanswerable. Like whatever.
It really is.
Whenever someone expects you to solve that problem, like there's almost like I don't have a plan for that, but they got to come up with some type of BS response just to kind of placate people. Like did Norm or Liam even take a stab at anything like that at the debate?
Well, they did. All three candidates talked about homelessness, and all three candidates, pretty much gave the same answer. It's mental health, it's substance abuse, it's so many things. The city, Biddeford, because we're a service center community, 90% of the homeless people who are homeless today in Biddeford are not from Biddeford. They're from Kennebunk. They're from Dayton. They're from Lyman. They're from Portland. They're from all over. But they come to Biddeford because we have a service center here. We do have the Seeds of Hope neighborhood center, but geez, the York County shelter closed just a couple months ago, right? So all those people who were, at the York County shelter are now coming to Biddeford because we're the only game in town, especially in York County. So it's a really, really tough issue. You can't spend your way out of it. You just need to look at policies and procedures, and it's clear we're going to need state and federal help in order to solve this issue.
Yeah. It is definitely an interesting one. So, with all of those different issues in the mix, how would you characterize the race right now? Do you feel like anyone has any momentum? Is that something you're even commenting on right now, or do you have a feel for that sort of thing?
Don't ask me to prognosticate the outcome. Like I said, I think I might give Liam a slight edge, but I don't know. It's all gonna. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
It's all gonna come down. I don't know how to turn this off. I am technologically challenged.
I love it.
Yeah.
We'll grind through it.
Yeah, we'll just ride through it. Yeah, it could go. There's still 8 days, right? And they always talk about an October surprise. So who knows what could happen? Yeah.
It's definitely been an interesting one up to this point, though.
Yeah.
And again, the coverage has been good. It's funny.
Sorry.
There's no answer machine on this phone. It always makes me laugh how long people will sit on the phone before they decide to give up on picking up.
Right.
City council, pretty straightforward at this point. You have some incumbents, you have some new people, some people returning. Is there any story in there that's worth really discussing when it comes to all those different council seats?
Those are going to be some really, really close races. Really close. The only race I feel really comfortable, let's talk about this one for a second. The at-large race. Again, just like 2 years ago, we have 3 people seeking 2 seats. But we have Mark Lassard, Lisa Vadney, who you know from your work in the school committee, Nazreen Sheikh Yusuf. I think I pronounced her name right. Please don't hold me accountable if I didn't. I could spell it, finally. But so you got these 3 candidates. And that race, I mean, if you look at Mark and Lisa just over the last 8 to 10 years, every single election, those 2 are the top vote getters.
Yeah, she's been the top school board.
Lisa got more votes than Alan Casaban got for mayor, and same with Mark, although Lisa was evil. So you get those 2 people running for that office. So it begs the question is, didn't Nazreen kind of read the tea leaves and do some recon work? She lives in Ward 5. my theory is that had she run in Ward 5, she could have probably gotten elected. That would be her comfort zone. Young, newer residents of the city, they could get excited about her. She could have got on the council. But to go for at large out of the box was a huge mistake.
Do you think that that was an error more than a planned something? Like
I don't
there's no
I
real
never
reason why you would do that. It
I
sounds like.
always think it's a simple mistake versus something nefarious or evil or planned or strategic. I think sometimes people just don't stop to read the tea leaves. So I do feel comfortable. I will call it for Mark Lassard and Lisa Vedna in the at-large
Yeah.
race.
Yeah.
The other races, Ward 1, I think Pat Boston has an edge because Jim Lobel, he was the director of the chamber for 7 years, but he's a Marty pick. But Pat's very well respected. She's been on the council before. The people who are upset about UNE will, and here's an interesting thing about Pat is that she's actually treasurer for Norm Belanger's campaign. And she was 2 years ago, she was treasurer for Susan DeChambeau's campaign. So we know who Marty won't be supporting in Ward 1, right?
Is that one of the ones he endorsed? He endorsed Jim? Or not?
I don't believe that he did.
Yeah.
He may. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I'm
I know
having
he's
a hard time keeping track.
made endorsements on some of them, but not all of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and it's good to see my fellow school board member, John McCurry, get in another race. He was an asset for me personally on the school committee. I actually don't know. I'm not in his ward, and it's not someone I would be voting for or against, but I'm fond of him. So
Yeah, there were 3 of you from the school committee who decided not to run again. There was you, Lisa, who is running at large, and McCurry, John, who's going back for Ward 2. So we have some new faces hoping to go on the school committee. I'm just about finished with my interviews with them, and we'll publish that this week.
Yeah, I'll look forward to that. I mean, the 4 members that are going to try to be reelected have been great to work with over the past couple of years, and I think it is important to have some consistency. It's there's so much to learn in all these roles. To think that 2 years goes by so fast, and it's like you just kind of learn what all the acronyms are, and you learn who does what, and then next thing you know, you'd be gone. And to lose the 3 members that are leaving. And if we lost more, it would be that much challenging. But they'll figure it out. I'm sure whoever gets on the board will do a great job. Everyone's typically has their heart in the right place when they're on the school committee. So look forward to that. Let's see, recreation bond. You hear anything about that?
Yeah. So the 2 bonds, and then a charter review question. I think everybody knows that we just have to suck it up and vote yes on the sewer bond, because if we don't, we'll be facing huge financial fines from the state and the federal government. So we have to do it. On the recreation bonds, it's a really interesting question, and it's been an interesting approach. It seems like it was put together at the last minute just to hurry up and get it on the ballot. So a $6 million commitment is going to cost the average taxpayer in Biddeford $38 a year.
I saw that on a $382,000 home.
Yeah, on a $382,000 home. So that's what they call average. But they gave a media tour last week, and I signed up for it, and the guy from Spectrum News signed up for it. And they just took us around town, and they showed us all the various projects. And, Lisa Thompson, the recreation director, said, we want people to feel proud about their community and their recreational assets. Randy, I'm going to tell you, we were at St. Louis Field. And some of the stuff is like the roof is leaking. The outer fields don't have any irrigation. The fence is falling over in places. I mean, and that's just St. Louis Field. There's a ton of stuff. And then, you go out to Rotary Park, and they're putting plywood under the soffits of the roof so the birds don't go up and nest in there. But we just have an aging and crumbling infrastructure. Also at the J. Richard Martin Community Center. So, you got such inefficient heating systems that you have to run air conditioning in February because certain rooms get too hot. But we're going through 500 gallons of heating oil a week at the community center. That's insane. And so I think a lot of people, though, are concerned because they say $6 million and then they have like 100 different things they want to do. And taxpayers are like, well, what's going to be your priority?
Yeah, I question whether or not that $6 million is going to be enough for all the things.
No.
When
There's no
when you
way.
see all of the different parks and areas that'll
No.
be hit by this, like $6
Yeah.
million goes freaking fast.
I was doing calculations in my head while they were driving us around, and it's way more than 6 million. But what Lisa Thompson, our rec director, said to us was that this will just let them at least start on some priority projects. And I don't know if priority includes the skate park or Biddeford Ice Arena or Westbrook
Well,
Skate.
all of those things are mentioned in the overall
Well, of
description
course
of
they
what
are,
it's.
but I think they're trying to. I think they're trying to mention all those things to get as many people excited as possible. But the reality, the rubber's going to meet the road. If this thing is approved, then there's going to have to be a city council process with public engagement. But okay, well, where are we going to spend this money? Which projects get the priority? And that's not known now. So we'll see.
I hear about the ice arena, and that one's an interesting one for me, because Biddeford doesn't even have a hockey program at this point.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's all the surrounding community. I mean, obviously there's Biddeford people that use the ice arena, but it seems like it's all the other communities that are using it. It's like, it makes me wonder if we're going to pay whatever amount of this bond towards an arena that other communities benefit from without increasing the ice time costs that we pass along. And,
Yeah, that's a tough question. I mean, I support our city's recreational opportunities. I just feel like, and probably Lisa will get upset with me if she hears me say this, but I think the bond package was put together at the last minute. They tried to put everything in the basket to appeal to a wide range of people, and it's still unknown how specifically, because usually when you do a bond, it's like, okay, we want to pass a bond to build an extension on Biddeford Primary School, right? And the voters approved it. And so then you go ahead and do that project, which we're just about completing, right? No, yeah. But I mean, we're getting there. But this bond just seems to be too vague in my mind.
When's the last time a bond like this didn't pass, though? Doesn't it seem like taxpayers are more inclined to vote for yes for things than they are no?
Yeah, but remember a few years ago, were you on the school committee when there was a bond, when we used to have a separate election? Yeah, I'm sorry, it was the school funding election, which happens in June, and voters rejected it. And so what the schools did was they turned around and they put the same amount back out again.
That must have been before I was on the committee. I've been on for the past 6 years, and maybe it wasn't that much longer ago than that, but I don't recall that.
People scream a lot about bonds, but then somehow miraculously bond questions get passed. So
well, it reminds me of the school budget. I mean, talk about how the reason for our increase in taxes this year has a lot to do with the school budget, but end of the day, the thing passed pretty resoundingly.
Yeah.
So it's just
Biddeford people support our schools, and Biddeford people are going to support our recreational assets because what Lisa said is right. People want to feel proud of their community. They don't want Thorn Academy's marching band coming over here and laughing at the fence that's falling over. Okay, we want to be proud of our community, and so I think the recreation bond is going to pass by at least 5 to 10 point margin.
Yeah,
that's just my guess.
It'll be interesting to see. Do you have anything planned over the next week leading up to the election? Anything different? But you have obviously a profile for the school committee candidates, but anything else coming up between now and election day?
The other things we're going to do is we're going to pull the pre-election campaign finance reports for the candidates. We're going to break down how much they're spending. And then after the election, we will pull the post-election campaign finance reports, and we will calculate how much each candidate paid for each vote that they got. So if the candidate got $100 and they got 30 votes, then they paid what?
$3 $3 and change. Yeah, that is so freaking interesting. But not every community ever has that type of coverage, right? Like the fact that you're doing this, it takes someone like yourself, something like the Biddeford Gazette, to be interested enough to do that.
It's kind of sad that there have been so many stories that we've covered over the last year since we started, since we formally started in January. There have been so many stories. I'm like, if I didn't write the story, then there would be no story. And that's sad. Like, go back to Thursday's grievance meeting. Now, Liz was there from Saco Bay News. I don't know where her story is. It wasn't up as of this morning. The Press Herald reporter didn't even show up. There were no TV stations. It's basically just me, from the main media. I mean, there's a couple bloggers and stuff like that, but I mean, when it comes to media, and I said to my wife, I said, it's really sad. If I didn't go to that meeting, if I didn't take the pictures and write the story and do the research, nobody would. That's I think Biddeford deserves a full-time newspaper. That's the reason I did it. It's because we're the biggest community in York County. We used to have 3 newspapers covering City Hall. We had the Journal Tribune, the Portland Press Herald, and the Courier, and now we have none of those covering us.
Yeah, times have changed, and Biddeford Gazette is a new publication for a new era. And I think it's a good thing. But I mean, how many communities don't have that? Yeah, Portland Press probably covers Portland and some of those communities that abut it. But, there's probably not a Biddeford Gazette in person in Kennebunk or Sanford.
Yeah, well, the Maine Monitor earlier this year did a listening tour. They went all over the state. And according to their research shows that, like in communities like Rumford or Mexico or in towns like Bodenham, there is no coverage for people who live in those communities. They don't know what their town councils are up to or what the school committee's up to because there's nobody doing it. It's just newspapers. We're in the corporate age of newspapering. And, people say to me all the time, oh, I wish the Gazette was printed. I understand that. I wish we still had yellow pages, but it's not going to happen. And it's just so, because Randy, not only do you have to consider the cost of the printing, which is huge, but then what are you going to do with those papers once you're going to print it? You also have to then have distribution. You got to pay people. You got to find a way to get the paper out. The Biddeford Gazette doesn't have a paywall. There's no charge for subscribers, just like Saco Bay News. We're free, can be accessed by anyone 24/7. But the days of print newspapers, they're gone.
I get why people want that. They want to hold something physical on their hand. And there's nostalgia for it, and that's the way they grew up, and they had their cereal with the newspaper on Saturday morning or whatever. But it just doesn't. It just doesn't make sense to do all that stuff, and it's so easy to post online.
Yeah, it is so easy to post online. That's a good thing and a bad thing because a lot of people like to be pretend journalists and then, get things all screwed up. But, one of the most interesting things since I started the Biddeford Gazette, Randy, is I, of course, track my analytics. I can see what time of day people are reading, how many people read a particular story, and consistently every single week since we started, biggest spike comes when we publish our weekly obituaries.
Yeah.
And I would have never thought. Yeah, I would have never thought. And that's, you can see the analytics go like this and then ding on Sunday, then back to, zing on Sunday. Because people really, they miss that. They miss the community connection. They miss knowing where the bean supper is going to be. They miss seeing the birth notices. They miss seeing the daily police log. All that stuff. The stuff that makes us a community. And the obituaries are kind of the last piece we're holding on to is like, oh, I knew her, or she was related to my second grade teacher, or he was, I was best friends with his son in high school, or whatever. People feel a connection to those obituaries. And a lot of people reach out to me and say, thank you so much for doing this. So I'm happy to do it.
I know I check them out when I see them. I mean, I was looking at one, I think, just yesterday. So that Sunday must have came out. I was one of those people that contributed to your spike yesterday. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, Rock Ange's younger brother passed away.
That was his brother. I saw him and I looked at him. I figured there was a relation. I didn't read through his actual obituary as I was scrolling down, but I saw it.
The sad thing is he died on Thursday morning, yet Rock Ange was at the meeting on Thursday night. And I said, Rock, do you really want to be? You don't have to be here. And he said, oh, I do have to be here. He says, there's nothing I can do at home right now. So he said, I want to be here.
Yeah. So about the Biddeford Gazette, we were kind of getting to it. You have the advisory board now. What are your hopes for the next 12 months? Or I'm sure you started to
Yeah.
work with that advisory board to kind of figure some of that stuff out, or
Yeah, we talked about, so we, our top priority is as soon as we can round up some money, we want to do a redesign of the website and increase its functionality. We are working with an attorney right now to set up an LLC, and then from there, make ourselves a 501c3 nonprofit. That will achieve a couple of our goals. Is one, to keep the lights on, number one, but secondly, to not have to deal with ads. We want to be, there's a lot of grant money out there around the country for independent journalism, for kind of bona fide independent journalism, not just some guy with his phone writing opinion pieces. So that's the model we're going to look for. That's why we have an advisory board to help guide us there. So we're going to stick with the nonprofit model. I get people calling me all the time, how can I advertise on the Gazette? How can? And I'm like, we don't really accept advertising. But the tricky thing is we do have to have some money. And because one of the other reasons I'd like to see a revenue stream, I'd like to be able to give Jim Krause, pay him, for some of his time. Or Karen Garnett from the school department, maybe throw some money at the school department because she's giving us great material. Or Tom McFeeters, or just, or just anyone. And what we're really looking for right now, maybe you have the connections to make this happen, is we want to find like a high school senior or maybe a junior who really wants to be a journalist someday, which I would try to probably talk them out of it, but to cover high school sports. If they would be, we could help train them, but I can't pay anybody right now, but I could give them, they could publish their byline, and that would be awesome. But
would be great.
That's what we want to do with money going forward is bring on more writers and then get the website, take it from, I'm not a web designer, Randy. I'm not a graphic guy. I'm just a guy that reports news. So the website's very clunky right now. It's not terribly intriguing, but I like that it's just kind of plain and straightforward. There's no pizzazz to it, but
Yeah, I mean, I do. That's how I would describe it. It is plain and straightforward, which I don't think is the worst thing, considering all these other websites that are just so flashy and there's a million things catching your eyes and
right,
kind of
yeah,
just
yeah.
get right down to what they're there to read. But I can also see wanting to improve it and have a certain look to it as well. So I don't think that's a bad thought. So when do you meet with the advisory board next? You guys doing that
So we're gonna, so we're,
quarterly?
no, we're trying to do quarterly, like roughly every 90 days. And because I don't want to ask these guys, again, we're not paying them. We brought a charcuterie board and some bottled waters to our meeting, but that's all they got,
Yeah.
But they gave us great feedback. And part of that is we're going to have to develop a social media policy. We're going to have to, there's a lot of things that we're going to, I'm not going to give away everything that was said, but we got some good feedback.
That's a step in the direction that you're trying to build it. So that's very cool.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
last thing I want to talk to you about was just you're being a moderator for a Facebook group, the
Yeah.
Biddeford Soccer Community. It seems like it's worked out well considering Biddeford Gazette. I mean, it's an opportunity for you to share some of that stuff out there.
Yeah,
Not that that's the purpose for it, but like I see a lot of your stuff on there too. And so you obviously have a huge presence on that community group. What's that been like?
okay. So yeah, that whole thing fell into my lap when Jim LaBelle was still at the chamber last year. He got into June, and the thing was going so crazy. And he said, "I don't have the time to take it." He said, "Do you think Liz would want to do this as a platform for Saco Bay News?" And I said, "Oh, that's a great idea." So I immediately called Liz and said, "Hey, you can kind of brand this Facebook group for Saco Bay News." And she was like, "Yeah, I don't know. It seems like a lot of drama. I don't really want to work on it." So I said, okay. So I went back to Jim and I said, well, I'll take it over and I'll ask a couple of my buddies to be, co-administrators. And he's great. He couldn't wait to sign it over. We had 16,100 members then. Today we're up to 27,400. When I started the Biddeford Gazette, yes, do I share things from the Biddeford Gazette on that page? Absolutely. I'd be ridiculous.
Well, anyone can share anything they want on it, right? I mean, I'll show this podcast.
I also share stuff from Saco Bay News, the Fulton Press Herald, Maine Biz, Channel 8, Channel 13. But I would be, people accuse me of saying, oh, well, you're controlling the news. No, I'm not. But I would be a fool not to put my stories on the Gazette. I'm not on the Biddeford Soccer page. And it's also on my stories are on the Biddeford Maine Facebook page, which I'm not an admin on. But it does get into some tricky territory. Do I comment when people comment on stuff? Do I go back in and, have a conversation with them, or should I just let it go? So right now, yeah, that's a really weird question. It's
Yeah.
always hard to know.
Yeah. The groups function of Facebook is actually one of the things I like about Facebook. It's a way for people to connect around a certain goal, whether it's being a fan of the Red Sox or being from a community or liking whatever. So I do like the idea. It just seems like there's a lot of freaking drama all the time. So I do appreciate you doing it. I appreciate that we have it. It always blows my mind the way some people behave on it. Some full-blown adults.
Yeah, you're going to see some of those people in it. But, we said earlier about rural communities and lack of news sources. This is where social media has been helpful, because a group of people in Buckfield, Maine can start a Facebook page. And so they're staying connected. And that's the power of social media is giving us a sense of connection. And in any community, you're going to have just people who, don't want to say anything good or nice, and they just want to fight and argue. Oh, well. But that's it's the connection that people want. They want to know what's going on.
I do value that, that's for sure. So I think it's a great way to feel like I know what's going on in the community. Yes, do people ask about why there's sirens and a million people jump down their throats as to stop being so nosy and all that stuff. But there's generally good information on there that I definitely turn to. I mean, me and my wife both, you see this on the Biddeford Soccer Facebook groups.
Yeah. Yeah, it's doing well, and we're having to do less and less as admins, which is really nice. I like to just go through a whole day without having to remove any comments.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see it go.
Well, I'll be sure to share this on there and spread the word. And that's all the stuff I want to talk about today. I'm excited for the election coming up next week. Get through it. It's been, again, fascinating to follow the news coverage. I thought you guys have been doing an awesome job. I'm really glad that you came on to chat about all that stuff. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. Appreciate it.
And we'll do it again some other time. All right?
Okay. Always ready.
All right.